Today's video is different from anything we've covered so far. It's about the Imola weekend in 1994, the one people call the Black Weekend, when Formula One lost two drivers in the space of 2 days, including Ayrton Senna. I'm not going to be reacting to this one the way I normally would. Let's just watch it together.
All right, with Michael Schumacher now, and Senna! My goodness, I just saw him plunge off to the right.
You gotta have good awareness of the danger you are.
What on earth happened there? I don't know.
Because otherwise you will inevitably find a bad day. And I know I can die.
Friday, April 29th, 1994, the beginning of what would be nicknamed the Black Weekend. Whether you were a fan, attending, or a driver on the track, not everyone would leave here alive.
We've lost, arguably, the greatest talent of his generation.
Imola, Italy, the San Marino Grand Prix, the third race of the season. Before this race, the drivers' standings with rising star Michael Schumacher out in front, having won the first two races of the season. Ayrton Senna, the current world champion and a man who people already believe is one of the best F1 drivers to ever race, spun out in the first two races of the season and needed to bounce back if he had any chance of taking the championship this year.
So to Europe, to Italy, to Imola.
Qualifying was vital, and for Ruben Barrichello sitting in second place in the championship, he needed to qualify well if he had any chance of banking needed points this weekend. But then...
Worth sitting with for a second, this was only the third race of the season. Nobody walking into that weekend had any idea what was coming.
Going 225 kilometers per hour, Barrichello gets smashed unconscious by taking flight directly into a concrete wall. Medical services actually saved Barrichello's life that day, as the collision caused him to swallow his tongue. Any longer, and he would have choked to death.
You've seen the movements.
He's alright. He's shocked, of course, but he's alright.
Regaining consciousness and somehow escaping with only a broken nose. This was a sign of things to come.
Barrichello surviving that it all came down to being seconds away from choking. He walked away with a broken nose, which by any measure should not have been possible after a hit like that.
But why? What changed? Coming out of the 1993 season, there were a bunch of changes made to the cars, but not in the way you'd think. The cars were, to a certain degree, dumbed down.
The new rules mean the cars no longer have anti-lock braking systems nor active suspension, which helps cornering. Traction control computers have also been banned. It's all designed to make Formula One less technical and more a test of driving skills. Some say it also increases the risks, especially at circuits like Imola.
As you can imagine, not only were people angry about the steps taken back in innovation to make the cars worse, but also concerned for the safety of these new cars.
Unfortunately, mechanical failure is something that you couldn't design a circuit really that would cope with mechanical failure at the wrong time.
The changes were made to improve driver safety, but the drivers and teams knew they'd do just the opposite with a high amount of crashes and spins just 2 races into the season.
They collect Martin Brundle's McLaren.
So the cars had actually been made harder to drive that year on purpose, and it's hard not to look at that decision differently knowing what happened next.
That's Johnny Herbert off. Out goes Frank Lagorce, but the conditions are appalling because that's Fittipaldi out. Martin Brundle, the Japanese Grand Prix, is being stopped.
By this point in the season, the pattern was already there, crashes piling up race after race before Imola even started.
Saturday, April 30th, 1994. Going into second qualifying, the loom of what just happened to Barrichello is still on the drivers' minds, and for someone like Roland Ratzenberger was in just their second F1 race, the tension couldn't be higher. That's until...
Ratzenberger had a heavy shot indeed. We're going just to see there's movement in the cockpit, but that is a heavy impact on the left-hand side.
Roland Ratzenberger was in only his second Grand Prix. That context makes what's about to happen even harder to watch.
Ayrton Senna had enough and hitched a ride with a safety car down to the scene to try and obtain any information. Senna had been leading the charge with the outroar of the lack of safety measures in the F1 cars this year, so he needed to see the damage firsthand. In Tom Rubberthon's book, The Life of Senna, the then Williams driver was reported to be pissed with FIA's John Corsmit, a steward at the 1994 San Marino GP. Senna was quoted saying, "How dare they tell me what to do? I'm driving the car and they tell me about safety." Roland Ratzenberger died instantly upon impact with a skull fracture and ruptured aorta.
Senna going down there himself, needing to see it firsthand instead of taking anyone's word for it, that tells you how seriously he'd already been taking the safety concerns building all season.
All attempts to revive him proved useless. He was taken to the hospital by air ambulance, and for the public, that's all they knew. They didn't know if he was dead or alive for quite some time as the drivers, the teams and the FIA came together to discuss.
Ladies and gentlemen, the San Marino Grand Prix organiser has received a report from the Maggiore Hospital in Bologna that the driver of car number 32, MTV Simtech Ford, Roland Ratzenberger, succumbed to injuries sustained in the accident which took place at Imola Circuit during Saturday qualifying practice, April the 30th.
This confirms the fact that nobody had any doubt of that Grand Prix racing is a dangerous sport. It is a tragic start to the European Grand Prix season of 1994.
That's confirmation. I don't think there's anything worth adding here beyond just sitting with it for a moment.
In an interview with Sid Watkins, the F1 doctor at the time, he said,
I said to him, he was the fastest man around. He won the championship so many times. Why don't we both quit and we'll go fishing? And when you said something serious to Senna, he took a long time before he answered, looked into the distance for about a minute, and then he turned to me and said, Sid, I have to go on.
We talk about the chicanes and the barriers that we had there with the tires. Yes. If you happen to hit those tires, it's very likely that the tires throw you up in the air and you end up rolling. That's what happened with me in Mexico. And that can happen here with other people. Let me finish.
The best decision is my decision.
Watkins basically offering him a way out, and Senna taking a full minute of silence before answering. You can tell that wasn't a quick decision for him at all.
Senna was always one to push safety. He knew something awful could go wrong like it just did. Senna and fellow drivers Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher agreed to reform the Grand Prix Drivers Association, with them being the first directors.
We have to involve the engineers who are working every day together with the car, who know the cars, who know what is possible to do, plus the driver together. I think we can give a lot of input, a lot of help, and I hope we get listened to.
After a lengthy discussion, and against what some drivers and teams said, the race was to go ahead.
This is Senna doing what he'd apparently already been trying to do all season, pushing for drivers and engineers to actually be listened to on safety, not just told what the schedule required.
It now requires the drivers who have qualified for tomorrow's event to examine themselves and decide what they want to do about it.
The race goes ahead. Whatever anyone thinks of that call now, it's the decision that was made at the time.
Sunday, May 1st, 1994. This was already a dark day, with the public finally finding out about the tragedy that just occurred here the day before.
Ratzenberger crashed his Simtech and died as a result of his injuries.
F1 is as much of a mental game as it is a physical one, and if your mental state is jeopardized even slightly, it could endanger them and everyone around them. Senna nearly didn't race on this day in protest and for his own safety, so much so that it was revealed by his girlfriend at the time, Adriana Galicio, breaking down into tears. Senna told Galicio, "I have a really bad feeling about this race. I would rather not drive." He knew he couldn't quit. He had to go on. He brought an Austrian flag with him on the drive to commemorate Roland Ratzenberger and to cement his memory. Remember this. You can see from Senna's face alone just how uncomfortable he was.
Hearing secondhand that he told his girlfriend he had a bad feeling and would rather not drive, that's the kind of detail that only means anything in hindsight. But it's still hard to hear.
Beforehand, he knew something was wrong.
Senna would always stay in his car with his harness attached before the start, and that day too he was in the car, but there was one small detail. something he did very rarely. He had taken off his helmet so we could see his face, which was very serious.
I knew all the rituals he'd perform before the race. And that day he went against all those rituals. He did everything differently as if he knew what was going to happen.
People who knew his routine noticed he wasn't following it that day. Small detail, but it clearly stuck with the people around him.
Let's go to race start, 2 p.m.
Now! And Senna boils away. Schumacher second, Berger third, Damon Hill, and that's a Lotus. They'll have to stop the race, I'm sure, because there's debris on the circuit.
Pedro Lamy had no time to avoid the stalled JJ Leto, causing bodywork and tyres to fly into the air and some over the barriers, injuring a police officer and minor injuries to 8 spectators in the crowd. After everything that had taken place this weekend, you'd think this would be the catalyst to stop the race.
Another crash on the opening lap. Debris reaching the crowd. By this point, the weekend hadn't given anyone a single moment to exhale.
As something is very wrong with these current cars, but with the safety cars out and staying out for 4 laps, it made issues so much worse. Tyre temperatures needed for grip began to steadily decline. Safety cars were only reintroduced in 1993, and with Senna and Berger expressing concerns over how slow these safety cars were going. Once again, ignored by the FIA. The safety car in question, an Opel Vectra, not exactly the supercar needed to keep pace. You can see Senna getting frustrated by just how slow it was going. You could tell he was losing grip.
Drivers actually flagging that the safety car itself was part of the problem, and that concern getting brushed aside too. It's hard not to notice how many warning signs stack up before what happens next.
Means to say, of course, that Schumacher has gone into the lead, but the important thing is now, how is Ayrton Senna?
We really should be seeing some medical attention coming quickly here to the Williams with Senna. His head is he's very still in that car. He really needs help in that car.
The medical assistance is there. At a San Marino Grand Prix meeting, which has been dogged with the most appalling circumstances. First of all, Rubens Barrichello, then we had the dreadful accident for Roland Ratzenberger yesterday, and now this.
Sid Watkins, the doctor who told Senna to run away with him yesterday, was the first to arrive at the scene with his medical team, but by the time they got to him, it was looking bleak. The Tamburello corner was no stranger to action over the years.
Oops, and big problems. That was something broken on the car for sure. Big crash by Berger.
Oh my, oh heavens above, this is dreadful.
Watkins said in an interview, then he sighed.
And his body relaxed, and that was the moment, and I'm not religious, his spirit had departed.
Watkins knew almost immediately. There isn't really a reaction that fits here, just acknowledging that this is the moment everyone watching live understood too.
We'll find out what happened shortly, but remember the Italian law from Roland Ratzenberger's crash? No one knew the outcome of Senna's crash. With the race being red flagged, all the cars had to pile into the pit lane and wait for further instruction. All of the drivers went in, all except one, Eric Commerce. But why did he go against the instruction? Belgium, 1992, 2 years earlier.
So an enormous accident, this is what we saw. Eric Commerce coming through the second part of Blanchimont, flat out in 6 gears.
Eric Commerce was left unconscious from smashing into the barriers at over 320 kilometers per hour. Realizing time was precious in events like this, Senna, who was the first at the scene, got out of his car and sprinted over to Commerce, whose foot was stuck revving the throttle at full power.
Senna was the only driver to stop, get out of his car and go and see what condition Commerce was in.
Senna cut off his screaming engine and held his head until paramedics arrived.
He was momentarily stunned, knocked out, but by the time the marshals got to him, he was beginning to come around.
To this day, Eric Commerce said that if Senna wasn't there, with a full tank of fuel and a screaming engine, this could have been catastrophic.
Quelques secondes, ça aurait pu exploser. Ça aurait pu. Probablement que ce jour-là, Ayrton m'a sauvé la vie.
This part actually says a lot about who he was outside of the results and the titles, stopping his own race on a full tank, engine still running, to physically hold someone's head still until help arrived. Comas has said for years that Senna being there probably kept that moment from becoming something far worse.
Back to 1994, and against everyone's judgment.
I'm absolutely, I'm gobsmacked. I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen at any time in my life.
The most ridiculous thing I've seen from the commentators, but this goes deeper than that. Comas was here to repay a debt, but it wasn't to be. Commers resigned from the race and didn't speak about what he saw for over 10 years. The drivers were still unaware of what had just happened, but for the journalists, they had noticed blood dripping from the helicopter on top of them and feared the worst. All TVs in the pit lanes were turned off, and Martin Brundle reported that he had heard Senna was okay, but the FIA knew otherwise. So why didn't they cancel the race? There's an interesting reason, but I'll touch on that in a second. At this point, we've had 2 deaths and around 15 injuries.
The detail about the blood on the helicopter, and everyone in the pit lane realizing something before it was officially confirmed, that's the kind of moment that must have felt endless for the people standing there.
Although Berger, Bernie Ecclestone and Niki Lauda went to race control to make a request for the event to be stopped, the request was rejected and the race was to continue.
The race resumed.
The request to stop the event was made and turned down. That's a decision that gets revisited a lot when people talk about this weekend.
2:55 p.m. It kept getting worse. 3 further retirements. Gatshot abandoned his car in the gravel following a reduction of oil pressure.
Andrea De Cesaris, his 198th Grand Prix, ended against the wall.
Brabham retired due to steering failure, and Gianni Morbidelli retired when his overheating Ford engine cut out on lap 41. On lap 48,
the San Marino Grand Prix would have one more nasty twist.
Michele Alboreto came into the pit. Should be routine for the mechanics, but as he left,
Michele Alboreto's Minardi loses its right rear wheel as he leaves the pit lane,
striking down 4 mechanics who were left needing hospital treatment.
And even after everything already that weekend, it somehow wasn't finished. 4 mechanics hurt in the pit lane on top of it all.
Now this is the last thing that the San Marino Grand Prix needs, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the red flags come out. The most unhappy races has been my ill fortune to watch in my entire Grand Prix viewing career.
Michael Schumacher went on to win this race, but to no celebration. The paddock was in despair at the loss of a friend and the unknown outcome of a legend. No champagne, no jubilation. Schumacher saying,
Certainly no good feelings. I mean, just win a race, but I can't feel satisfied. Can't feel happy. I mean, what happened this weekend, never have seen something like this. Not just one thing, so many things. The only thing I can say about this is I hope we learn from this. It's the only thing I want to say and I can say.
A win with absolutely nothing behind it. You can hear it in his own voice afterward. There was no version of that result that felt like a victory to anyone standing there.
So how did it happen? Upon striking the wall, the front right wheel came off alongside fragments from the suspension, which ended up piercing through Senna's helmet, causing a gash above his right eye, slashing his temporal artery, which he eventually bled out from the severity of the impact. Watkins later said that as soon as he saw Senna's fully dilated pupils, he knew that his brainstem was inactive and that he would not survive. The world stopped.
Hearing exactly how it happened doesn't really make it easier to process, but it does explain why even someone as experienced and as fast as he was couldn't come back from that impact.
Senna was not just a legend in F1 with 3 world championships to his name, but an international icon and the spirit of Brazil. After the car was taken in by Italian authorities, they found a little Austrian flag in the cockpit of the car. Senna held that flag for Ratzenberger so he could show it off after the race. A race he wouldn't even finish. Senna was given a state funeral in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 500,000 lined the streets to say goodbye to a man that showed Brazil that they could truly do anything, be anyone.
That flag detail is the kind of thing that stays with you. He was planning to hold it up for Ratzenberger after the race. He never got the chance to.
Brazil announced 3 days of national mourning in honor of Ayrton Senna. The big question now is, why didn't the FIA step in even after the first fatality? Why would they go ahead knowing the defects with the cars?
It has been suggested in some quarters that these accidents might in some degree be caused by the rule changes that have come in this year.
The answer in short, money. Formula One is undoubtedly a money sport, so it's not as simple as calling off a race. These events, as well as the cars, are littered with sponsors, investors, ticket sales, TV broadcasts, and everything in between. In saying all that, due to the severity of what occurred with Ratzenberger, they should have postponed this race out of respect, and realizing how dangerous these cars were in their current state. Money would have been lost, but they should have done what's right. not what's most lucrative. 2 days after his death, the FIA came together to bring about new safety measures that were to be introduced to the cars immediately and before the next race weekend.
It's a fair question to sit with whether the decision to keep going that weekend was about the sport itself or about everything built on top of it. The safety changes did come just 2 days later. For the two men who didn't make it home from that weekend, that timing doesn't change anything. I don't really have a clean way to wrap this one up, and I don't think I should try to force one. This weekend changed how the entire sport thinks about safety, and it came at a cost nobody should have had to pay to get there. If you want to watch the full video, I'll drop the original creator's link and channel down in the description. Thank you for watching this one with me. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.